It's also inexhaustible.
Say that one more time.
Inexhaustible.
Inexhaustible what?
So it's an inexhaustible gift of a quality to forgive and bless.
Yes. So watch this. You said quality, good word. The word that we used last week was capacity. Right? It's this inexhaustible capacity. If you have a container, if I have a glass, somebody got a water bottle, daughter, okay, let me see your water bottle real quick. Thank you, ma'am. This water bottle only has the capacity, watch this, of its container, right? The bottle size. So even if I want to fill this to the brim, after it is filled to capacity, right, I cannot get any more water in this bottle. Y'all understand? We agree. Right? If I fill this up, put it under a water fountain, or put it under somewhere, and I try to give it all I can, it's going to top off at the bottle size. And what grace is, catch this, it removes the barriers of the bottle. So it's an inexhaustible capacity, an inexhaustible space to receive forgiveness and blessings, thank you, from the Lord. Now, I hear you in the spirit. Well, Pastor, God's got an endless supply, but my supply is a little tapped out. And I don't know who you are, it's okay. my supply ran short on about the third time. Right? After time number 3, my bottle is full. Right? How many felt that way? I felt that way, right? I felt that way. And the truth of the matter is, here's where we got to really understand grace to its fullest potential. Grace cannot be an attribute of you. It must be something where you tap in to Him to even give it. If you tap out of your own nature and out of your own flesh, you have a limited capacity. But there's endless supply when you tap into supernatural. God doesn't have a box that you can fit it in. So therefore, if He's got grace, and we're going to hear this in one of the scriptures, He's got what you call grace on top of grace. Right? He's got what you call, this thing is like, it's on top of itself. It doesn't stop within itself. It continues and it builds on top of itself. That's the one.
So I have a question. So we extend grace, and like you said, sometimes we get to a place where we're tapped out, but we should still kick in. What's the fine line between extending grace and then being somebody taking advantage of the grace that you or being taken advantage of?
That's good. That's good. And then we're gonna come to you. The pastor once said, "What's the fine line between being taken advantage of, right, and extending grace?" Now, catch this. Because grace has this endless supply, the goal of grace is what? The goal of grace is reconciliation and pardon. So is it even possible? One of the most common things in Christianity is, Lord, I want you to use me. Right? Lord, use me, Lord, I'm right here for you. Right? And then when He puts you in a position to be used, to give grace, I don't want you to use me like that. See, the world's concept of usury is mismanagement. Right? But God's concept of grace, watch this, is restoration. See, the idea of grace starts to do what? Pardon the person. It pardons the individual. While we think we're being done wrong, the reality is what you are now doing, because I heard you, Holy Ghost, the offense don't change. Y'all know that, right? If you are offended by something and then you grant grace or you forgive, the offense is still there. Right? I heard somebody say the offense, right, is an action, right? But to be offended is a whole mentality. Y'all catch that? So now what we're talking about is an idea. If I'm on the side of grace, right, and I'm extending grace, is there a moment when I shouldn't extend it? Now, don't misunderstand. Just because I've extended grace don't give you the opportunity to do it again. Right? It doesn't mean, catch this, I'm cool with what you did. It doesn't suggest, right, that I'm even going to go back into the territory where I allowed you to do it. Right? But what it does do is it removes your debt that you owe because of the offense. So is there such thing as withholding grace? No, don't.
I'm kind of brain
Come on.
messed up right now.
Come
She
on.
asked part of my question, because my question was extending grace in discernment, but then it's somewhat linked to whenever I was learning to forgive my stepmother, the Lord explained it to me like this. We know that forgiveness is for us because it heals us, but ultimately, He said, when you forgive her offenses, you actually cover her as well. And so, because I'm always raised in not doing anything for myself and always doing it for the other, it worked, because then I saw the other. But at what point in this discernment thing, because he had me reading Matthew 18 last night, so at what point does the other person, is grace, no, repentance?
Yes, come on. You're talking through it, but you're getting there. That's it.
So, like, at what point does the offender need to be in a place of repentance?
Not our responsibility.
I know
That's it. It's not grace. Watch this. Watch this. Extending grace does not mandate the person to be in a contract place. It doesn't. And that's where we get in trouble, especially when it comes to forgiving somebody. Like, true space for me. It gets difficult when I feel like you need to apologize for me to extend grace.
It's still back tied to being not discerning enough. So not like, oh, you gotta repent before I forgive you or give you grace, but like, for example, I let all of my students turn in their work late, all the way up to the last day.
Right.
If you can get the work to me, I'm not gonna fail you.
Right.
And so because I extend that to the entire class, every student, then I don't have to worry about getting in trouble. But at what point do I look at a student thinking, okay, I'm not doing you any good by allowing you to turn in your work late? Does this make any sense?
Yes. See, again, I think you're trying to measure how much grace you give by their appreciation factor, and you can't. You cannot measure what you give, because see, then it becomes an exchange, which voids the fact that it's grace. See, then it becomes a merit-based, work-based situation. So I'm giving you grace based upon what you do. Then it's no longer grace. You paid for it by your action.
I'm just always getting harped for not being discerning enough in my...
I want you, now watch this, now catch this. Discernment is an attribute, or I don't even say, it's a gifting that is independent on your action. Sometimes God will let you discern this is not okay, or this person is weird, and still tell you, hey, I need you to do some work right there. I need you to show up because there's an assignment. But God, they mentality, they character, little jack. Yep, thank you. That's why I need you to be president. Right? So it's independent. It's independent. This is one of the ideas that God began to give me revelation about. Grace was independent of the recipient's response. The whole idea of grace, the grace of God coming towards us, is not contingent upon your reply. It's not. He extends grace to you whether or not you appreciate it. Whether or not you understand that it's grace at all. As a matter of fact, he coins it this way, the phrase is this way, I reign on the just and the unjust, which removes whether or not you are doing good enough or bad enough to receive it, right? It's raining on both. Let's go to some text, because we got some really great thoughts. I want us to keep that rolling. I think we stopped at Romans 3 last time. Go to Romans 11:6, and then we'll kind of finish that out from last week, and then we'll move into some things tonight that I think will be very, very important for us moving forward. Romans 11:6. And this is talking about unmerited favor. And I want to start there because that's kind of the topic we're on now. The earning grace. You cannot earn grace. It voids its receipt, right? One of the ideas of love is that it comes at you, right? And I'm going to tell you one of the difficult parts about this love thing. This is the real idea of who we are, right? Our denomination is love. This is what we teach, this is the standard. These are the things that we're giving to people. But the real deal and the real challenge with love is that it's not reciprocal. I know that's tough. That's tough to hear, right? Because some of y'all stop loving somebody because they wouldn't love you back. Right? I tried to love him with all I had, but he just wouldn't love me back. Boo, that wasn't love, that was a negotiation.
Have mercy, God.
You were in the middle of a transaction. See, it is that love has no payment but reception. You cannot look at it coming back to you as the way it engages. It's not engaged by it receiving itself, but the fact that you give it with nothing in return. See, and we're not used to that concept, especially in our culture, this Western culture. We're not used to people doing something without looking for something back. Like, Brother Darren, we got a question back there. Oh, I'm sorry, Kevin, come on, Kevin.
I was gonna ask because, and I may have missed the answer to this question, but I struggle kind of with what she was saying, but just creating boundaries and having healthy boundaries in the midst of showing grace, because I feel like, all right, transparent moment. So for me, I'm a people pleaser and I have codependency issues, meaning I want all people around me to be good, I want them to be straight, and if they're not, I feel some type of way. So how do you set healthy boundaries so that you don't play yourself, but also so that you're doing what God has asked of you? Like, how does
that's good.
What does balance and grace look like?
And that's good. Let me give you. There's no balance to grace. And let me answer that this way. There's no balance. But here's the deal. When you have an idea like that, what you often say, and I know boundaries is a real word, a real thing. It's one of those ideas that we try to, have healthy balance and all that stuff. But what you say when you try to protect yourself is, God, I don't trust you, because you allowed them in my life. I don't trust you to handle this situation right. Not I don't trust them. See, that's how we play ourselves in our mind as if it's about them, right? But the reality is, if God allows an encounter, because we're praying that, that you're allowed, you're trusting him, you're asking him, you're talking to him. And so, God, I want to put this boundary. It says, is that your boundary or mine? Is that your space or is that my space? Right? So if I trust you, God, then I'm walking by faith. And I know that even if there's a trap there, you have protection for me. See, this coming Sunday, I'm getting a little ahead of myself. I heard you, Holy Ghost. A part of what's coming down the pike is there was a pit experience for a brother, Joseph, that most of you would try to never encounter. Right? Y'all would never willingly go to the pit. But the fact of the matter is, he was graced for the pit. And had he said, God, let me put these boundaries between me and my brothers. I don't like them. They're my half-brothers anyway. I ain't feeling them and they ain't feeling me. I ain't about to go out to the field and try to find them. I know my daddy told me to go find them and check them out and see what's going on. But I'm not finna do that. They don't like me. I don't like them. We got a line right here, right? Instead of that, he says, okay, well, where y'all at? I'm supposed to be looking for y'all. Let me see what you got. Oh, I'm in the pit. Because I trusted you. And watch this. I've got to trust you in pit experiences. Right? Not to protect. Most of the things that we try to have boundaries on are to protect us from pit experiences. That's what we want. We don't want downtime. We don't want time in tough stuff. We don't want time in suffering. We don't want time in challenge. We don't want time in stuff that don't feel good. But God is saying, listen, I only make kings down there. I only make queens down there. I only make you, right, elevated to the place of who I've called you to be when you're in a pit-like experience. So, if I put a boundary that stops me from going in this pit, then what I've also done is stop my elevation and maturity in. So again, there is no boundary with mercy. There is no boundary with grace. God is saying this is something that you have to always extend, because just not a thing. It's not a thing. Let's look at this. What do we have? One more. Darren. Brother Darren.
She already knocked it out. I mean, he was in the road.
She called you?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. But if it's by grace, God's unmerited favor, catch that. A merit is something that's worked for, right? Unmerited favor, it is no longer on the basis of works. Otherwise, grace is no longer grace. It would not be a gift, but a reward for works. Do y'all see that? Right? So if I have an expectation of the person I have given the gift to give something in return, whether that is contrite heart, whether that is a mentality that's been sorry, whatever that is, if I'm looking for that as payment, it is no longer grace. It is an exchange or a reward based upon a merit or a work. So you make null and void, watch this, the grace of God when you don't give it freely. Make null and void. It's not grace at all. If I got an expectation for you to do something bad. Oh, what's the point? We got one over there, Sister Laura. We got one over there. Ready in my mind. Somebody says, "Well, look, I was bothered by you, Barry. You had an issue, man, and you know you offended me when I heard you talking about my brother. Right? I was offended, and like that wasn't cool." And Barry says. Oh, I done came to you. I done approached you straight up. And you ain't gonna say nothing. See, this is the mentality that has to change. Y'all see that? Because I came to you with an expectation that if I do it the Bible way, Matthew 18, right? Matthew 15, 18. If I come to you, right, and I bring my ought to you because you offended me, then your response ought to be, this is the Christian life thing, you ought to be like, my bad, bruh, my bad. But when I don't get that my bad, bruh, from you, now what I've done is compounded my offense. Now, I ain't just mad, I'm mad. And now I don't like you because you didn't give me the reward I wanted. You didn't give me the response I was looking for. You didn't meet my confrontation with a I'm sorry. Right? So now I'm good on you. When in the beginning, had you extended this real grace of God, you ain't looking for nothing back. It's freely given. It's freely given. Remember, it's giving somebody something they don't deserve. We're going to talk about some candidates for grace later. And we all are candidates for grace. Right? So if you are, raise your hand, let me make sure everybody a candidate for grace, raise your hand. All right, we're good candidates. Okay, cool. We're candidates for grace. If you're a candidate for grace, watch this. You're also a candidate to extend it. It can't work just for you, right? And what we're talking about is extending grace hurts. Receiving it feels good.
So when you extend grace and it hurts, how do you get the hurt off of you?
You don't. See, and I'm glad you brought it up. It's coming. It's coming to the I promise it's coming. It don't because, watch this, the hurt matures you. Hurt does something that's very uncanny. It has a unique ability to shift your glasses, the way you see things. Hurt changes the vantage point between things. Now, here's the problem. We have used hurt as a way to be bitter. And when we look at the text, God says, hey, grace and the root of bitterness, they don't really work well together, right? So we look at this hurt and we start to own it in such a way that I'm now using that to justify my emotions. When you are hurt, guess what? There's a fracture to something. When there's a fracture to something, there's an opportunity for that thing to be healed. And what you got to realize is God is in the business of making sure that there are opportunities for his presence in your life. So if you ain't never hurt, you can't see him fix something. Right? If you ain't never sick, you can't identify is properties of being Rapha. If you're never in a place of war, how do you know he's the Prince of Peace? Peace is only necessary when what? War is present. So these are ideas. Watch this. And again, it was a trip when I was looking at these whole candidates for grace, and there are tons. Abraham was a significant one I kind of got into today. It was crazy how watching him walk into a trap was the very thing that set him up to be the father of faith. Watching him, just examining, look at the text. We looking at it in hindsight, we see the whole picture. But this has got to be a test when you tell me to take my only son, the one that you told me you was going to give me, then you give me a miracle child. My wife is super old. Super duper old. She produces this child, and then, watch this, you tell me what? Take him up here and kill him? Huh? That don't make sense, right? But it makes great faith. And so now, hey, this is a setup. This is one of those opportunities where this is going to hurt me, and as I'm going to the space to be obedient, he shows up. And based upon you moving while hurt, moving while not being sure, he says, that's when I can trust you with tough stuff. I can give you a whole lot more because you're going to do what I say, even if it don't feel good, even if it don't look right, you're going to trust my word. How many times have God told you to do something, and it's like, oh, that don't seem quite right, God, but you got it. So we're going to roll with it, and we're going to keep doing it. And after you've been obedient, you're like, man, I'm so glad I did what he told me to do. Because it always works out based upon your faith, right? Be it unto you. Does somebody have it?
I did. This is the last thing I want you to move on, but I'm just wrestling because along the same lines, what'd you say?
I said this is good grappling.
Oh, okay. I know I'm wrestling because if now we don't deal with the hurt, we just let it go. What is even the point of going to the brethren to tell them that we're offended if we're not even looking for a reward? Why not just eat it on up, keep it moving, I forgive you, you ain't sorry, let's move?
Well, okay, so you interjected something in there that's a little different. You have to deal with the hurt. That is the point. See, grace is not the point of dealing with the hurt, right? That's a separate kind of issue, and you can't see them one and the same. Dealing with the hurt is, again, where you get different lenses about what's happening. Because then you'll start to discover why it hurt, right? What it offended. I got a huge testimony. Things that used to burn my bridges and offend me and make me mad. I mean, pissed off when I was like 20s and 30s. It could happen today, but like, oh, we're good. How did that happen? I had to encounter something that offended me. I had to address the offense and see its relevance. Yeah. So there's a necessary component. You must deal with her, right? But you got to recognize you can't avoid it. That's what we're talking about. And what we do is instead of extending grace, we don't because of the hurt. Because we feel some kind of way. We'll extend grace because I'm still battling the feelings and the emotions that are tied to what you did and how you did it and where it transpired. All of that stuff is still ingrained in me, and it is set up, we're going to go through that text soon, it is set up a root of bitterness, and that will stop people from experiencing the grace of God. Now, they can't get God's grace because you're mad. You hold the key of people seeing Jesus, and you put the key in your pocket because you're mad at him. It's a whole word. It's a whole word. I just won't, Pastor. You don't know what they did to me. You don't know how they, and we got daughter going back there. You don't know how they hurt me. You don't know what they said about me. Did you hear? I'm not feeling, that's a classic. I'm not feeling. Webster defines as, right? Right. Fin to. I'm not fin That's when you proper, but you still ghetto. Right? I'm not finna to do that. Right? So it's watch this. And KK, you said it best. We start to put up barriers that prevent further damage because we don't trust God to be damaged in his hands. And the real deal is, I'm my best when I'm damaged goods in the hand of a molder, a creator who knows how to shape, right? Because what he's going to do is further damage me, beat me unto subjection. So I say, you know what? Not me, God. Go, whatever you're going to do, come on, do it. I got you. And then when they try to say something or do something, you're like, man, listen, I'm already at my lowest point. There's nothing you can say. I'm already here. It don't even hurt no more. I'm good. Matter of fact, you start sounding like Jesus. Forgive them, Father. They don't even know what they're doing. Thank you. Forgive them, Daddy. Right? I'm going to cover them now. Daughter.
For your question, I think that's a lot of thing, like a lot of people think that like, oh, if I forgive them or if I give them grace, I'm just not dealing with it. As if it's okay. But I think the difference is how you are dealing with it. Like that is like what you qualify as dealing with it. So I think in that is when we go to God and allow him to be our safe space and vent to God and allow him to validate or tell us where we're wrong, show us ourselves. And I think that's because we don't have a full understanding of what forgiveness is. So like forgiveness being a decision and healing being a process. So we think like, oh, when I forgive, when I let go of the debt, when I extend grace, that I'm saying that that's okay that you did that to me. Or that it's not clear to you, like what she was talking about earlier, it's not, you don't understand. You haven't said thank you. You haven't repented. You don't understand what I'm doing for you. And that ain't got nothing to do with forgiveness at all. Forgiveness is saying, I'm making a decision to no longer live in prison in my own mind, right? And the healing of all of that comes with that process. So I think that when we let go of the other person's response of what they're supposed to do, we can fully extend grace because it's just like forgiving a debt. So I don't have to deal with it by me. Like what shows that I've dealt with it? You crying or you apologizing or you saying, like, how do I know? And I think that God is trying to make us more like him, which is being unoffendable. So I'm like reading the book, Debate of Satan. It's amazing if you haven't read it. But I'm also doing a devotional about becoming unoffendable. And he's showing me like, hey, I'm turning you into me by making it to where when people say stuff to you, it does not bother you. Or you bring it to me, or you see deeper into the situation where you're like, that baby's hurt. She's just doing that because she hurt. And that's trauma from when she was 6 and she ain't dealt with it. Not our faults, but I'm gonna extend grace because that ain't what she's trying to do. But he's like making us unoffendable, so those offenses that come, you gotta deal with it. Because if you ignore it, it's gonna keep on happening.
Daughter, you just echoed the whole intro. I know y'all came a little late, but that was exactly what we shared in the beginning. No, I know you know. No, you're good. Listen, I'm saying, but that whole roll off the back thing. See, because this is crucial. Listen, and I hope y'all catch this in the Holy Ghost. This is crucial. When you are easily offended, what it reveals is your heart, not the person's. You catch that? Catch that? When you are easily offended, it reveals you, not the offender. This is why the requirement of the text is that the offended make the first move, not the offender. Like our culture, we want the offender to come to us first. The scriptures culture says the offended goes to the offender, right? So, and I want y'all to see this in the gradual space of kingdom. Jesus, catch this, was offended by your sin. So he came to you to rescue you. He was offended by sin. And he wasn't waiting on you to come to him. He came to you first. He extended himself to you, right? what's the song? Oh, how I love Jesus. Because he came and loved me first, right? And then we got a glimpse of what that looked like, right? So that's a crucial idea. Do me a favor. Let's go to Romans 5:8.
Danny, while we go there, can I say one thing? And this guy, his name is Ryan Leake. He wrote a book in a devotional called Undefendable. And I just posted this today, and he said, your greatest opportunity to be like Jesus is when you've been hurt by someone. So it's that very thing of like being able to be seen as the hand and feet of God when we are hurt and we don't stay in a place of offense.
So next time we talk about, Lord, I want to be deeper in you. I want to grow. I want you to mature me. Lord, I'm ready to go. Because I know that's been some of our language. I heard it. Like, I'm ready to grow up in you, God. I'm ready to get deeper. Lord, I want to be closer. Right? Like I'm ready. And then he puts you in the face of the person you can't stand. Let me see how deep you're going to be today. let me see how deep you want to be today. You want to be like me today? You want to get closer to me today? Let me show you. See, this is the idea of suffering being the method he uses to bring you closer to him. Right? I want to be closer to God, not your foolishness. He brings foolishness so you get closer to him.
Yeah.
Right? And I know you want to avoid all of that, but stop avoiding your promise. The promise is the end result. The process, you never understand. You got to walk through that stuff. And it's never going to be easy. We got to text up. But God clearly shows and proves his own love for us by the fact that while we were still sinners, catch that. Listen, offense, we're talking about the offended. While we were still offending him, he showed his love, I heard you, Holy Ghost, by coming to you. Now here's the idea we get when it's Jesus. Why don't we get that in our flesh to each other? Why don't I see your issue that offends me as a method for me to extend grace? Oh, this is my opportunity. Oh, your attitude bad today? We going to work today? I already know this is my chance. This is my shot. Why we don't like this dude? This is that's good for you. It's castor oil. You know what castor oil is?
Yeah.
This is castor oil. Okay. Because here's the deal. When you stop being offended by every little thing, right? When you stop getting upset at issues between people, right? Family members, whatever. When you stop being offended, guess what happens? Your posture changes. You walk and respond. You know somebody who's mad at you will respond a certain way. Right? If you got an attitude like, and I'm mad, I'm gonna probably be short with you. Like, yeah, okay, not today. I'm not going to stop. That's KK's word. Stop talking to me, right? So, but I'm dealing with you in my anger. I'm dealing with you in my bitterness. I'm dealing with you in my frustration. And God says, is when you're not offended, you can start walking in love. Oh, cool, it's cool, because I got patience for you. Give me a minute. I got grace for that. I'm suffering now, but I'm going to suffer long for you. And I'm going to be kind in this. These are the deals, watch this, that means you're growing up. And as long as, I heard you, Jesus, as long as you ticked off by every little thing, you can't handle meaty stuff. Right? It says, Paul, I want to give you some meat, but you'll choke, so I got to give you milk. Right? What does that look like in a relationship? What does that mean in relationship? What does that look like when it's dealing with each other? Does that mean, my circle stays small but God really wants me to be great and have a greater influence and give me more territory? But if he does that and I ain't ready, I'm going to tear up relationships. I'm not going to manage what he gave me, right? Raise your hand, you're going to ask God for a promotion lately. Yeah, ask God for a raise, you want a promotion. You want to be in a different space. Yeah, okay. Look, God, I'm ready to go to that next level, Lord. I'm ready to go to that next phase. Right? I'm ready. I'm feeling it like it's in my whole spirit. And he's like, yeah, I got it for you. I know the plans I have for your life. I mean, it's waiting on you. You are who you're supposed to be already. What's the real issue? Well, if I can't forgive the folk in my little small circle, and you want to elevate me to another space, then am I going to demonstrate you? Is my character going to reflect you? Right? Did he not tell us, if you become faithful over a few things, I'll make you ruler over many things, right? So see, and I want you to put that in a whole bunch of areas in your life. In your finances, right? If you are faithful in your finances when you ain't got a whole bunch, cool, I can trust you with some more. Right? If you're faithful in your relationships, you know, with the few you got, I can give you some more. If you're faithful, whatever it is, the idea, watch this, is God is only going to give you what you can handle, man. Like, he's a gentle God. He's a merciful God. Go to this text here. I think it's 1 Peter 14. 1 Peter 14. Is that it? No. Yes, that's it. That's it. Just as each one of you have received a special gift, a spiritual talent, an ability graciously given by God, employ it in serving one another as it is appropriate for good stewards of God's multifaceted grace. Catch this. Faithfully using the diverse varied gifts and abilities granted to Christians by God's unmerited favor. This is a crucial one for me because it's talking about our relationships, it's talking about our interactions in regards to our giftings. And many of you have been granted grace, unmerited favor. You didn't deserve, you didn't earn the things that He's deposited inside of you. And why do we try to withhold our giftings based upon whether or not we like somebody? You know, praying for the same folk, and you're a prophet, you pray for the same folk over and over. Keep praying for them, right? But there's some other folk that might need a word, right? And it's okay. And so what happens is we don't want to go to the people that we're not fond of because there's an emotional tie that's not cool. So if I'm going to give them a word, it's going to be one of condemnation. Because I ain't really feeling you anyway. So I'm going to really not try you. I'm not going to say much to you. But if I do, it's probably, well, I'm really go to John 1:15 through 17. This is a real deal because our interactions got to be gracious, guys. The thing that God is extending, right? He's using and going through us, right? We've got to be willing to give it to all we come in contact with. Check this out. And we'll read 15, 16, and 17. John testified repeatedly about him and has cried out, testified officially for the record with validity and relevance. This was he of whom I said, he who comes after me has a higher rank than I, has priority over me. For he existed before me. John in the wilderness, verse 16. For out of his fullness, check this out, the superabundance of his grace and truth, we have received grace upon grace. This is spiritual blessings upon spiritual blessings, favor upon favor, and gift heap upon gift. Before we go to 17, I want you to catch this, because the grace that extends, watch this, to us from Jesus, this unmerited space, is more than what you need. It kind of covers itself. Look at what it says. It says, out of his straight grace and truth, he extends it. But we get blessing on blessing, right? Favor on favor, this gift on a gift. Now check out 17. but grace, the unearned, undeserved favor of God, and truth came through Jesus Christ. Why did I pause before we got to 17? Because we treat our relationships like the law. We treat, and we're coming to you. We got one there. We treat our relationships, right, out of obligation, right? I'm only going to bless you based upon something. I'm only going to have favor on you based upon something, right? I'm only going to give you something based upon. How many of us have refused to extend some spaces because we ain't friends no more? Like, we ain't cool, so I'm not going on my way to pick you up. Like, if you was my homie, or if you was my girlfriend, and it was your baby shower, I'll buy you a gift, but we're not cool no more. You're not getting no gift. I'm being funny, y'all, but I want you to hear something. Because now what you've done, I heard you, Jesus, you instituted a law, idea, and concept in regards to how you treat one another. And God is saying, I didn't do you that way.
Yeah, right.
What if I waited on you to pray for me to give you that promotion?
Jesus.
Right? What if I waited on you to be obedient, right, for me to honor your request? I'm not gonna let them get that until they do what I told them to do. Some of us never will be. Never will get there. We still wrestling, Lord, you still want me to go say something to them? I'm just not there yet. Right? Your obedience is not predicated on whether you're getting verse 16 or not. Right? The blessing upon blessing. Because it is extended by grace, and that from him out of his truth. He's giving it to you. He's giving it to you. So why won't you freely give it to them? Freely give it to them, daughter.
I wasn't going to say this because I feel like we summed it up, but when you said we treat our relationships like law, and then right here in 16, my translation says his fullness, we have received grace upon grace. Next verse, grace and reality through Jesus. So, in my head, and I could be entirely wrong, I'm not a theologian or I'm not pastor, but in my head, I always saw grace as a person, the person of Jesus. So, no, Jesus is not grace because Jesus is grace and love and mercy and all these things, but grace in its entirety is Jesus. So if I'm trying to bestow grace that I don't even have, then I'm going to operate in law. But if I look at grace as Christ himself and then get in communion with Christ, then I can give Christ to other people.
Yes.
So that part where they're unrepented,
Yes.
Nobody truly receives the presence of Christ and is not changed by that presence. So when he told me forgiveness, which to me is the prerequisite of grace, when he told me that you forgiving your stepmother not only sets you free for the healing shake process with the hurt, but it actually spiritually, by her covering, by you covering her, sets her free into a way that she is more able to receive me. And when I did that, and I started going into my Father's house, I spontaneously would respond, not as Stephanie would typically respond, but as Christ would, because I allowed the presence of grace, which is Christ, in, and then she began to respond to me as Christ would respond, even though I know she still has tricks up her sleeve.
That's perfect. That's perfect. See, because we would like to not extend grace just because we know they still got tricks up their sleeve. Like I can still, I see you. I see. You know I can see you. I don't know what kind of meaning that was. Yeah, I see you. You know I can see you. And here's the deal. Watch this. Because I can see your tricks, I don't feel like you deserve this grace. But that is exactly when it's supposed to be extended. When they don't deserve it, it's undeserved. You gotta catch that. It's undeserved. I know I can read the Bible and tell you all about the right? But I hadn't had an encounter where what I know has changed me. Who I know has now birthed inside of me. And I don't respond as Miree. I don't respond as Daniel. I respond as Christ. I am now a representative. I am now an ambassador. I stand in the gap. Do you know, last text we just read, do you know John was crying out in wild places? Right now, if you're not crying out in wild places, there's an issue. What does that mean? I'm not saying go out, in Antioch where the woods are. I'm saying cry out where your stepmom is. Cry out where the dirty stuff is. Cry out where the hurt and cry out there. And tell, watch this, we're accustomed in religion to tell Jesus about the problem. That's the way we kind of roll. But why not reverse that? Why not change that? Because it's not that he's unaware, right? So start speaking to the hurt. Start speaking to the issues. I am more than a conqueror through Christ Jesus, right? He's greater in me. So I'm not going to let you now have some kind of authority over me. I'm speaking to you now out of the abundance of grace. Acts 20:32. Acts 20:32. We got a question? Yeah, but
Today at work, the guy asked me to use my phone.
Yeah.
And he's like, I need to call my whoever. And I was like, all right, that's cool. And he used it for like 30 minutes. I'm like, for real? He used it forever. And he left with it. He came back and he's like, man, ain't you missing something? I said, I ain't really worried about it. But he was like, thank you for using your phone, and I give you money for being so long or whatever. So how would I go about like the Christ way and say, what I mean? How would I, if God says it's better to receive than give, right?
Right.
But how would I give God the glory in that?
Tell him thank you. Put that money in your pocket. No, I'm serious. No, let me say, and I get it. But here.
But it's not getting active grace, you know what I mean? But yet, it's like.
You didn't ask for the money, did you?
No.
See, I'm glad you mentioned your testimony. Because here's the deal. When you are in posture, the right posture, God is going to continue to pour and put stuff inside of you didn't ask for. Because you freely gave, now he needs you to freely receive. Right? You enter into a continuum or a cycle, right, of undeserved space. I didn't really deserve that. But because I just gave, God put it on his heart to just give. And what you got to do is receive. Now, what you receive, you don't know. You might run into somebody who says, man, I'm about to jump off the cliff unless I get $10. Dude, gave me $10.
But how do I give God the glory in that? You know what I mean?
Obedience, man. And watch this. Gratitude. He says, this is the will of God, that you give thanks. That's why I told you, say thank you. Right? Tell them, God, thank you. I didn't ask you to do that, Lord, but I'm grateful. Here I am. Like, use me. Cool. Do you want somebody else to use my phone? Right? So it just gets into the picture where really, man, your heart of gratitude, because again, you didn't ask, hey, man, you going to drop me off a little bit? Because that's the way we normally do, right? I pick you up for, church, and we roll to church, and then when I get ready to take you home, I lock the door before you get out, right? So what you got on this gas tank real quick, right? That wasn't a gift, that was a trade, right? Or you get out, and if the Lord doesn't, so here's your motive. That was the thing. You give glory to God by telling, I'm grateful for what you've done.
Yeah, but the thing was, he gave tell me thank you for the phone, but it's like, that wasn't me, it was God. How do I give God, should I give him, how do I give God the glory out of the other than me?
Your obedience was that. See, most people think giving God glory is just the lifting of your hands, right? Or a particular expression that comes out of your mouth. But the greatest glory God will ever get is out of your life. So when you do something, right, that he has encouraged or pushed or told you to do, that is the greatest display of God's glory ever. He says, then men will see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. So he gets glory through your obedience. The fact that you were cool, hey man, hey, it's cool, we good. Because you could have been like, bro, I don't really know you, like, I ain't really feel, you know what I mean? But you were led to do it, right? And guess what? In return, he was led to put some money in your pocket.
Right.
So in return, you feel led to say thank you. That's it.
But at the same time, it's like he's going through some problems and felt like I should have prayed for him or something. But that might get too deep. Maybe he's not a godly person or whatever, and all that, everything else. But you know what I mean?
You know his name, Daryl?
No.
Okay.
I don't even know if I don't need.
That's cool. You can pray for him right now. You know you ain't got to be in his presence to pray for him. Yeah, you can pray for him whenever. So when God gives you that unction, you said you felt like you're supposed to pray, bruh, pray for him. That's it.
But what are we supposed to pray about though? If you don't even know?
Ask the Lord. See, man, this is good. This is good. This is the moment where all the things and the ideas that we want to try to know, and because God is omniscient and we're not like that, we use that as a way to not engage or not to do. Right? God's like, no, man, we still good. Just ask me. If I created the Apple computer, right, and I put it together, then I pretty much know, like, if something go wrong, what's wrong with it, right? And so you can take it back to Apple, and Apple can fix it. You really can't take it to Microsoft because they don't know the inner workings. And what I'm saying is all the details and stuff like that, take it back to God, man. Just a question. Hey, God, what you want to do today? You know, one of my favorite lines in the morning is, what we doing today? Right? And that's, you know, not to me, that's to God. Hey, how are you navigating my life? What are we about to engage in? Right? We had one day. Did you have your hand, Mike? Mike, and I think we got one. I saw a couple hands.
I did. I think you covered it. But as when you were talking about why it's hard for us to extend that grace to other people, and even though we know that, you know, this is what God has done for us, and if He's given us grace, how come we can extend that grace? I think it really comes from a little bit of condemnation and not accepting grace for ourselves and not gracing ourselves. And so if I feel like I have to work to get this salvation, how can I actually give you something that I feel like you deserve? I don't think you really deserve my apology. You don't really deserve my peace, my presence, because I see what you're doing and you didn't work for it yet. So I think that's why it's hard for us to extend that grace that's given to us. And that's why I think it's key when we are getting saved, we have to say, do you accept Jesus? Because you accept the grace that He's given you, you accept Him being in you. So once you accept that, you acknowledge that, and so you're aware of that grace, and so you're aware of, you're not so much aware of the condemnation that's on yourself. So you're free, so then you're free to give.
So, Mike, as you're preaching right now, sir, so what you're saying is most of the stuff we're actually trying to do, we can't do because we haven't received ourselves. It's a whole word, man. That's a whole word. We had one back there. We had one more hand. Yeah, back there, dog.
Okay, I have a question. It
Sure.
might be a silly question, but I'm really trying to understand this thing. So, you know my situation. I'm new here, so I'm going through a divorce. And so the other day, Tuesday was his birthday. And he called the kids to talk to them or whatever. And then after he talked, one of them was asleep, but after he talked to the youngest, when he texted me, he was like, well, you could have told me happy birthday. And if you couldn't say it, you could have waited to talk to me another day. First of all, I was confused because he called my phone. It's not like I called him. And it was totally like unintentional. I had things on my mind and wasn't thinking about it. But my response was, and I probably shouldn't have said this, or I probably got it wrong, but I was like, you know, I've extended grace to you because I feel like you don't even deserve for me to talk to you, period. But I'm nice to you. You know, I'm not mean. You know, I'm not, there's no drama or whatever on my end anyway. But I told him I don't have to
All right, so this goes back to the conversation we had, I think, in the beginning, because one of the ideas of grace that we have is that it has a leash. It's got a leash on it. You know what I mean? I got a dog. His name is Asher, and Asher, he's my buddy. He's been to church. He's shot hallelujah. And he barked at the demon. We'll talk about that later. Okay, so I press the, there's a button, there's a lever on the leash, right? And the lever extends for him to move and roam about as he desires, except for after 8 feet. After 8 feet, you have a restriction. And what happens is that we put grace on a restriction leash. As soon as you get to 8 feet, bro, you can no longer do what you want to do. Right? I'm no longer extending this grace to you. And the unfortunate part about that is we've broken the 8 feet rule with God many times over. We have. So now, daughter, to answer the question, you are not obligated to tell anybody happy birthday. Right? That is volitional. It's just, if you desire to, cool. If you don't, cool. It's not a thing. But I'd encourage you not to say to him, I shouldn't have gave you the grace I gave you. Right? Or you don't deserve what I gave you. That's the truth. It's a true statement. But what it does is it puts it in the confines of law, and you bound it, right? You put a boundary by the grace, as if he could have did anything to deserve it anyway. Right? He became a candidate by his offending. Right? So again, I think I asked in the beginning, all of us raise our hands if you are a candidate for grace. And if you are a candidate for grace, you are also supposed to be an extender of that same type of grace. Does that make sense? Check this out. And now I commend you to God. Who are we commending you to? This is a crucial space because, again, I think you said it, daughter, part of what we try to do is extend grace out of our own selves, right? But this is now a different kind of idea. Grace is not an extension of me, it's an extension of the God in me. And now I commend you to God, placing you in his protective, loving care. And I commend you to the word of his grace. Of his what? Say it again, of his what? Right. The counsel and the promises of his unmerited favor. His grace is able to build you up. It's able to give you the rightful inheritance among all those who are sanctified. Now catch this. This is very crucial because we think sanctified is, apostolic faith or denomination, right? Sanctified. I grew up in Closet. It's okay. I'm sorry. Sanctified, filled with the precious Holy Ghost, right? With evidence, with the evidence of speaking in other tongues. That was the mother's testimony in my church every Sunday. Right? It's saved, sanctified, right? When sanctification is an unending process, right? That's a thing that really becomes achieved at death. Now we'll talk about that in the whole other place. But look at what he says. That this grace that is being commended to you, right, by the hands of God, you're giving somebody into the hands of God. Catch what it is. It's able to build you up. So now we look at the lenses of grace as an opportunity to build somebody and not tear them down. Do you know, like, talking about the offense over and over tears somebody down? Like some of y'all, let me say some of us. Yeah, I like that word. Some of us, right, would be in a place where we ain't gonna even talk to you if you keep mentioning my issue. I don't even talk to you no more. You keep bringing that up. Say it one more time. Say it one more time. And I'm gonna hang up. I'm gonna leave. And watch this. Because we don't want to address it, but reminders don't empower. It don't. Grace empowers. Grace empowers. Now watch this. I've never seen somebody give their life to the Lord by condemnation. Not condemnation. But loving them out of that stuff brings them into a whole revelation. See, the point is, you want them to get and understand that they don't deserve it. That's the point. Then it's like, man, I don't deserve this. I'm grateful. I'm grateful you forgave me. I'm grateful, right? Not, well, you better be lucky. Right? And I know that might be the sentiment. But the idea, watch this. Now the commendation. The commendation is of you and not of the Lord. He says, and now I commend you to God, placing you into His protected. Do you know grace protects and covers? So I ain't got to look at you and what you're doing. I can commend and pray for you and place you in the hand of the Almighty. I commend you to God, place you in His protective, loving care, and I commend you to the word of His grace. Watch this, I am recommending grace for you. Not judgment. Not the law. You do know that's how they killed Jesus. Right? Based upon His word and His self-proclaimed identity. Oh, you the king of the Jews, huh? Is that what you're saying? So let me put this law right here. Place this law right here. And if you say that's who you are, let's get it. Let's get it. Right? And He says, well, I was paraphrasing here. Well, I had to keep their eyes closed because if they would have turned to me at the moment, I would have died for your sins. Okay, Jesus. So, but now that I've died for your sins, I need you to operate like me. I need you, His grace is able to build up. I need you to extend that to everybody. Build them up. Free them. Release them from the debt. Release them from what you say they owe you. Forgive them. Catch it. You build them up and you give them rightful inheritance. Now here's the part that I think we struggle with, and I'm going to close here. There's a few more texts, but we'll get to them as God's grace allows. You don't get to determine who gets God's inheritance. And I know that's a tough space because, like, you want to be able to have that kind of empowerment. You get to determine who gets to be free. Who has to pay the price? We like determining who's just and who's not. We like determining who deserves it and who don't. We like determining. But the real idea is His grace, right? When you build them up, you actually give them freedom, right? Whoever them is, and the whole word is we all them. We're all them. You give them freedom to access their inheritance. What is the inheritance? It ain't money, y'all. It's His grace. You want your real in it? What is the song down the words? Get my inheritance. Get it, right? You want your inheritance? You want what's coming to you? Grace be unto you. Grace be unto you. Last comment and we'll go home. Go there.
Like, if somebody was at the store and asked for $1 and I gave them $1, but yet they went to go get a beer and died the next day, is that on me? Because when you love somebody, you gotta correct them, right? But God said to judge righteousness.
Say it one more time, go there.
Like, if someone asked me for $1 and went to go get a beer for it and they died the next day, is that on me?
No, man. Again, a gift is freely given, man. You are not responsible. You're not responsible for what they do with that gift. There are a lot of times that, in my younger years, I used to, kind of judge whether or not I was going to give somebody some money, right? If they looked like they weren't going to do the right thing with it, like, no, they're about to go get high. I'm not about to feel, I'm not feeling, right? And I keep it in my pocket. I grew in a space of grace where that ain't my call. See, because it is that they could be on their way to do whatever they're on their way to do and encounter a risen Jesus, right? And it would never go that way had I kept my money in my pocket. Give you an example. At the Love Mission, the day we met you, there was some gentlemen about to get high. And in the middle of them getting high, right before they got high, they encountered one of the pastors who walked with them, and prayed with them, and talked with them, right? I don't know what led them to get to that place, that moment, right? How they got there. What all transpired, we don't know. So it could have been somebody gave them some money on the side of the road, and then they got to that place. But when they got there, they at the right time, right? That's Tori started saying, hey, before you do that, I don't stop you, but before you do it, can I pray for you? Can I talk with you? And in that moment, it was an encounter with risen Jesus.
What do you pray about? What do you talk about? Because when you get high, you don't talk about Jesus, you know what I mean?
He don't. But again, it's one of those spaces where you live with the Lord. You know what, man?
You get cussed out.
That's true. It could be an opportunity to get cussed out, but that didn't happen. And that's what I mean by being led of the Lord, man. Because here's the idea. We don't know anything like in regards to what can happen. Anything can happen anytime. That's why we can't protect ourselves. We got to commend folk to Jesus, and He is our protector. If I am scared of what's going to happen, then I probably never would have approached you. I never would have said, hey man, how you doing? Right? Because you could have been like, bro, I don't know you, and started firing off. Now I'm from Detroit, so I would advise that, right? But I'm saying that could have happened right there. It could have happened. Right? It could have been a whole thing. But I'm not afraid. He didn't give me that spirit. So even if it happened, He told me to do something. Turn the other cheek. And so I'm listening to Him, not protecting myself. We can figure out all this protection stuff, but I promise you, if you are led by the Lord, He says, that is how I qualify you as my son and my daughter. Those who are led by the Spirit.
But what does it mean? He said He's going to let the Holy Ghost speak through.
That's exactly what it is.
How do you figure what to say, though?
And we're standing. Last question. Let's stand. Daryl, check this out. How do you figure out how the Holy Ghost speaks through you? It's intimate relationship. It's reading His Word. And He says, I'll write that on the tablet of your heart. I'll write that stuff on you, man. Right? And when I write it on you, when I bring you into an encounter or an assignment with somebody, I'll give you what to say. And so it's trusting Him. There's a number of ideas that really, really, engage how we get connected to say what He wants us to say. I'm reminded of Samuel and the encounter of really knowing who God was for the very first time. Eli, the prophet, told him to go lay down and says, man, listen, when you hear that voice again, say, here I am, Lord. Right? That's the whole thing. So getting acquainted with His voice, getting acquainted with who He is. Now I can represent Him. I can say what He wants me to say. So it's a process. It's a process. Amen, Jesus, and the grace of God. We're going to continue this study. Y'all be in prayer. This is a great season, but this is a trying season. And as it is a trying season, y'all know what that means. That means God is really grooming and growing us. I will give you a heads up. We are looking for a number of things to come in this next season. One of the things is we're incorporating a prayer moment for our congregation. We shall be a house of prayer, not just having a prayer ministry, we just have certain moments, but our whole congregation coming together to pray. That's an important piece of what God is saying for us moving this next space. And so be in prayer about that. There's also talks regarding the pastors now with whether or not we will do possibly a Wednesday Bible study. So be in prayer about some of those things. And we're just trusting Him for this next season, this next journey. In Jesus' name, amen. God, we thank You. We love You and we appreciate You. As we celebrate You, God, as we lift You, we actually look to your grace for keeping us, and protecting us, and pushing us, teaching us exactly what it is you desire from our lives. Now may we extend that same thing. May the grace of God and the sweet communion of the Holy Spirit rest, rule, and abide in us hence now and forever. In Jesus' name, amen. God bless you.